This is the next level of spirituality. What I would like you to know is that I'm recording this with my phone. What I would like you to know is that I'm using a 700 euro laptop, and I've created all the content. It's like a 13-inch, or maybe 11, it's hard to say. It's a fairly small screen. And most people that I meet, they think they have to have like a Mac computer, super expensive gear, they have to have like insane abilities to do what they're doing. But let's be honest, it's a hack job. I have no super special equipment. I just bought the first laptop that I felt like, it's like speaks to me. I got that one. It's very small, let's just see how big the screen is. I'm gonna measure it. It's 29 centimeters wide and roughly 17 centimeters high. That's fairly small. I have another screen that I use. It's like 24-inch. Because only working on the small one is fairly hard. I've written all my books with this. I've rendered all these videos with this. It's a simple i5 or something. It's not like, right? I don't have this super expensive thing. All my pictures I've taken, I also do with this laptop. And I tell you something, after I deleted Windows 10 and it came out, I installed it and I was disgusted. What they had created was clearly something to simply suck energy in the sense of, I don't think I have to be careful with that because it's obvious that this operating system is stealing your data. And I had used Windows 7 for years, and when Windows 10 came out, I was so disgusted. I tried it a couple of times, and every time I turned off the settings that were saying like, allow the system to, access your camera, for instance. And I was like, wait, why do they need this access? Like, why do they need all this access suddenly? I mean, it's a bit weird, isn't it? And I started to really turn off all these things, but once in a while there came like a forced update, and all these settings that it took me probably an hour to correct were back there. I mean, Windows is a really bad job, and I see laptops that are actually good and that are running Windows 10 and they're super slow because it's very bad craftsmanship. I switched to Linux Mint and I'm super happy. This is the most stable operating system I've ever run. There are a lot of options. I think I'm working with Mate at the moment, I think so. Maybe I can give that a quick check. And everything I do with Linux. I use Kdenlive to render my videos. I use OBS Studio to record my screen. I use GIMP for my art and Darktable for my pictures. And I use Audacity to make music. That's all there is to it. And there are so many tools out there. This is just a few. There are so many tools out there, you can basically do whatever you want. This is the freedom that I wanted all my life. And now what we have to talk about is psychedelic substances. Now it's very strange, recently when I drink a coffee, it's like, instead of that it makes me awake, sometimes it actually makes me sleep. And then I'm wondering why it does that. Sometimes I feel like I'm using these substances to do something, but I don't know what anymore. What is it doing? Because I actually have stomach pain now. I could have drank tea. Now something wants me to drink another coffee, but I don't want to. Because I've already got stomach cramps. Why don't I just drink water? Why do I feel like I want to smoke all the time? That's a very, very valid question. Why do I feel like I need to smoke tobacco? Why do I feel like I need to smoke cannabis? I've started researching about this HHC stuff because that seems to be now the new drug. And all I can say is that the guy who's selling it looks a little bit shady. Now the question is whether or not he looks shady because he has a CBD shop in Germany and everybody hates cannabis here, or they say they do. At least, like people that are higher up or think they are higher up, like government officials, they seem to think that cannabis is very bad. They want us to drink alcohol. And they want us to drink coffee and take all these things. And, I have no idea what HHC really is. And I'm pretty sure that nobody knew what LSD really is. But I can tell you that when I smoked it, I had the feeling it feels clean. Right? The cannabis I smoke here feels dirty. But the HHC kind of feels clean. Now there are probably differences, and that's the problem with any psychedelic substance. Let's just use that term, because once it enters the mainstream, it's gonna be corrupted for their greed. And they're gonna start stretching it with really weird materials. Which is why I say to most people, just stay away from LSD until you know people that you really trust and that actually have your well-being and your healing at heart. So probably unless you know the person who's making the LSD, I'm gonna tell you, just don't take it. Just don't take it. There are very few people, like individuals out there, who make sure that what they get is the genuine stuff. And that's the same with spirituality. If you want to look for people who want to heal you, or you think they want to heal you, also with ayahuasca ceremonies, most of the ones that I have discovered, and yes, they do exist in Germany, I would suggest, it's very, very weird. It's like fishy. It's hard to say the least. It's hard to say, very hard to say, what they are here for. I stopped going to these things because after I had gone there a couple of times, I realized that this was a trap. That the people were just coming back there, but they actually never received any healing. And I received my healing because I went alone into the forest and I did my stuff. I worked with Reusch, I went hiking. Now recently I've stopped hiking again, and the question is, why did I stop hiking? Maybe it's because I started smoking cannabis again. Or maybe I'm just going through some kind of emotional processes. It's very hard to say, at a certain stage, I cannot say anymore what's me actually. And if there is something else that's driving me to do something, why do I feel like I want to go and buy HHC? I think I want to try what the youth is smoking these days. And I've already tried it, and like I said, I thought it was nice. I thought it was nice. It feels like a new kind of cannabis, like a sterile in a way. It feels like a bit like smoking LSD, to be honest. And I think we really have to pay attention to what's going to happen to it. It really depends on where you're getting it from. And the best way to go is probably to just stand on your own 2 feet, but let's be honest, it's very hard to know what's going on. And sometimes I just want to jump off a cliff, emotionally. Because I'm looking into an abyss and I see this everything's full of anger and hatred and lies. And I think, what is that? Because my family's down there, Maybe the woman I love is down there, so how am I going to get there? And sometimes I just need something to start diving again. And every time I stop diving, I never want to dive again. And then I say, wait a second. That sounds like a bit of a trap to me. Because the only reason I got to where I am is because I started to dive. And I think part of my job is to also look at what's available and then figure out what's going on. Now, something I have to say about ayahuasca is that it is very, very bitter. If you would start eating more bitter things, like really bitter things, and to the point where you actually like them, I can tell you, almost certainly guarantee you, that this would already change your life. I realized that if I eat too much sugar, it's not only that I get bloated, more bloated, and then I get more heavy. While I was doing the inorganic sulfur cleanse, I felt much different. This is one of the things that really helped me to change the way I am. It was the inorganic sulfur cleanse. And now I'm basically doing everything to clean myself spiritually and energetically, which is you have to spend as much time in nature as you can. At the moment, I'm recording episodes, I'm recording videos, I also have to be inside. I also have to say that oats make you feel really bloated. But I'm getting kind of used to the feeling of being bloated. And maybe I needed that because I was using more and more things that make me high again. In the first year where I was doing my art, I basically never smoked. I didn't do anything except for what everybody else does, which is sugar, which now to me is one of the most vicious things I ever came across. It's like sugar, stay away from it as much as you can. Try using stevia. This is one of the hardest processes to get rid of these things, these addictions, these bad habits. But do you have to get rid of all of them? Well, if I would be, let's say I'm with my wife, I'm with my children, do I really want to keep smoking? Do I want to feel like I have to smoke cannabis all the time? Because I see the people that smoke cannabis. They have no energy anymore. They're just completely depleted. But at the same time, smoking cannabis can also make you more relaxed. But the problem is when you're too relaxed, you will stop feeling like you need to do anything. And if you rely on a substance to make you feel good, then you are losing yourself in the substance. The point is, when you do smoke cannabis, to not simply say, oh, I feel good, and watch movies, and just stuff yourself with food. It's to say, I'm not going to eat now. I'm going to smoke this thing, and then I'm going to meditate with it. And when I realize, the first time you're gonna do it, it's gonna work. You're gonna meditate, it's gonna work. Probably, right? It's like, yeah, then best without tobacco, because tobacco is going to make you more sleepy. And if you want to look for truth, you probably have to stay silent, alone. That's like, or with, I like to do it alone. Because then I'm only in my own energy. And then you have to say, okay, because I smoke anyway, maybe I'm going to smoke a week, nothing, or 1 month. Try a month. And then you smoke again. But then, under completely different situations. I've talked about it in an episode in my podcast called Spiritually Clean. And it's about cleaning your apartment, like wiping all the surfaces, like cleaning your carpet, dusting it off outside if that's possible, just making everything into kind of like a holy ceremonial place. And then you smoke and you sit as much as you can in the meditative posture. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you put on some meditation music and then you just try to meditate with that. And that personally helped me to learn how to be self-sufficient. It's hard to say how much of what we do is actually good and how much of what we do is actually bad. And I'm constantly getting sucked into these good and bad categories. But the only reason that I do this is because I already have a good or bad category. I think, let's say cannabis, I first think it's good and then I think it's bad. Or what's in the middle? And then I usually get back to sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If I use it to go within and to move on and to work with my fears, I would say, what's bad about it? Because if I use occasionally a psychedelic substance to engage with myself on a spiritual level, to get higher wisdom, to connect to the higher self, to receive visions, then how is that a bad thing? Like, how could that be a bad thing? I would say, to me, the way I feel about it, these things also help me to make art. But I also have to say that I'm at the point where, one of the albums I made, just gonna be open about it, I did use MDMA. But it was also from a good source. I got it from a friend, and I know he knows what he's talking about. And I made an album. And now I could say, yeah, now I have to take MDMA again to make that album. But what you always have to see is that MDMA is only showing you a place within yourself that already exists, but that is buried under a lot of rage and hate. So if you can do something with cannabis or on MDMA or whatever, you also have to realize and accept that you could do it without if you only chose to. And of course, saying that brings me to the point, why am I so reluctant to simply not smoke anything? To just be content with drinking tea and being like super holy and happy. And then the question is, well, maybe it can be too much. I'm not sure. Maybe it can be a lot to deal with this kind of world, or this system or society, or just me, or just people, or life. And maybe that's why I keep smoking, because I still have the feeling that it also helps me to do certain things and to push through boundaries that I would otherwise be reluctant to push through. Only I think it's important to use it in an environment that you find allows you to heal also. And now when I make such recordings, I often feel like, I'm doubting if what I'm doing is really good. And that's I always have also the observer in the room, A bit of self-doubt is always important, just to humble yourself to the fact that there is a lesson you have yet to learn. And until I've learned that lesson, I'm always reluctant to let go of what I'm trying to tell myself that I need. Because I did think I need meat, and now I know I have no need for meat. But it took me an incredible amount of time to get to that place. And the same goes for masturbation and pornography. I know I actually have no need for these things, but what I have a need for is sexuality. But I can even go without that. I can even go without sexuality. And that's the truth. And once you know the truth, it may still take you years to finally let go of sexuality. Just as it may take years to learn how to grow a plant from a seedling. For me, that's certainly a goal, to learn how to grow my own herbs and to just see if I could grow my own cannabis for myself. And then I could make oils with it. But there's also this weird feeling of, why have I always drawn a bird that's smoking a joint when I was a child? Maybe I knew that I will need it occasionally. Maybe I knew there is something to it, but it's still hard to say. Do I really need it? If I don't use it for some time, and I have done that like for 6 months, for 1 month, whatever, then sometimes it just comes back to me. And this is what I mean. Nobody can really tell you what you have to do, what you came here to do. You can get clues from other people, but at the end of the day, it's your time to learn a certain lesson so that the next generation can work with that. I feel like whatever is happening to me is somewhat good. So I also cannot say that my time I spent with these ayahuasca people was really bad, because I still grew with them until I outgrew them, I think, and then I left. But I also said I'm never going to go there again, because there's no spirit in what they're brewing there anymore. I believe, And I saw where it got them, because they were doing it every 2 weeks, which means you're kind of drunk on this stuff, which means it also uses its value for you, because you got greedy in helping people. And what I started doing is basically help myself, which is why I like doing these things on my own in my room, but I'm also very, 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 very picky with what I put into my body, right? I don't eat food from people that I don't like anymore, which is why it's probably best to just stay away from most food that you can buy on the street, because you don't know in what kind of spirit they're making it, They may not spit into it physically, but they may do so by doing it because they're basically cooking simply out of greed. And to find a cafe such as described in John Strelitzky's book, the Why Are You Here Cafe, or the Cafe of Questions or something, you know, or the Cafe at the End of the World or whatever, you may realize that these places are very rare to find, where people simply cook and they take the time and they cook with love and they give you what you need and they feed you more than just this kind of shit that they cook together, but actually love and real attention, and that are able to give you answers. These places are very rare to find, and it's also, you know, it takes a lot of devotion and heart and love for yourself also, but also for your fellow men to create such a place. And I think that's what we all need to consider, that, right, we're not just here for ourselves, we're also here for the other one. Because if we're only here for ourselves, then we're simply going to do the same thing that politicians are doing, which is trying to be the chancellor, right? Every politician, every single one, wants to be the chancellor because they think, if I'm only going to be the chancellor, right, I'm going to change something. And yeah, it's a fallacy. The chancellor will never change anything because the chancellor is always a power-hungry maniac. And that's why spirituality acknowledges the fact that you and I are the same, which means there is no hierarchy. It's like flat. It's like flat, but that also means if you bring me into your project, that means that my opinion should count as much as yours. And you may even have to accept that maybe I have something to contribute which you need. And maybe you have the project and you have the space, but I have the insight that I've been given, maybe, because I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's more or less what I'm trying to figure out for myself, right? How much am I right? And how much is the other person right? But the way I'm seeing it is that, I don't know, there seem to be some people at least that started listening to what I'm doing and that started to feel like, I think he's got something to say. And I'm saying it all the time, you know? It's like, figure it out for yourself. Start doing things, you know? You're on a journey. Take it step by step, you know? Enjoy it all the way. When you enjoy smoking for whatever reason and you feel like it helps you to relax you and you're not like sitting around like coughing like an idiot, I think, I mean, it's all right. Don't you think so? And I certainly personally stay away from sunglasses because only shady people wear sunglasses. People that got something to hide. And I'm all out in the open.